Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The Ministry of State Assets, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy of Korea, Polish power companies ZPAC and PGE, Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power have announced the conclusion of a letter of intent on the development plan for the Pantnov nuclear power plant and the conclusion of a cooperation agreement between the ministries. This is another strategic investment by the Polish government. Poland's security will also soon be strengthened by South Korean Chunmoo multi-launchers and K2 tanks. After years of talks and negotiations, Poland is on the final straight to build nuclear power plants. The US conglomerate Westinghouse will be responsible for the construction of the first, while the second will be built by Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power, the company that operates all 24 nuclear power plants operating in South Korea. This is how we will build our energy security. We will also work with the Polish side to increase the area of land in Poland for future investment in order to employ as many Poles as possible and increase information and technology transfer opportunities for your economy. The parties emphasise that the intention of the agreement is to assess the possibility of developing cooperation within the framework of locating investments in Poland in the Konin district of the city of Pantnov, where a lignite-fired power plant is currently located. Prospects for the transfer of advanced technologies are opening up before Poland. In addition to the implementation of this investment in Poland, we want to export to Poland and cooperate with you also in areas such as hydrogen and battery-based energy production, areas where we are leaders globally. This will be the second planned nuclear investment in Poland. The first will be built by the Americans. A strong Polish-American alliance provides guarantees for the success of joint initiatives. After recent fruitful talks with US Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary Jennifer Granholm, we confirm the implementation of the nuclear project with proven and safe Westinghouse nuclear technology. We thank the Ambassador of the United States for his cooperation. The resolution of the Council of Ministers is on Wednesday. Atomic energy is cheap and green. It is the answer to the challenge of reducing carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. Nuclear energy does not generate greenhouse gases, which means that it is not subject to the ETS system, which imposes the obligation to buy permits to emit carbon dioxide. It should be said that it is a great success for Poland that we are starting to develop nuclear energy. It is a very stable and at the same time low carbon source. The establishment of nuclear power plants in Poland could provide 6 to 9 gigawatts of power. By comparison, Poland's largest power plant in Belarus has a capacity of about 5 gigawatts. The most optimistic scenario assumes that the construction of the first power plant will start in 2026. Its commissioning would take place in 2033. The first fuel crisis of 1973 caused by OPEC countries caused France to decide not to depend further on fossil fuels, but to switch to nuclear power, which is, on the one hand, insensitive to problems in the international arena, to problems with the supply of fossil resources. And on the other hand, it is worth noting that in France, the CO2 emissions needed to produce the same amount of energy as in Germany are 7 times lower. Today's agreement is not the only recent cooperation with the Seoul government. Jacek Sasin, prior to the nuclear talks, held a meeting with South Korean Defense Procurement Minister Aam Dong-hwan and Deputy Minister of the Defense Procurement Planning Agency Il Sung. They discussed further cooperation to launch defense equipment production in Poland. The atmosphere of this meeting was very good. It indicates that these proposals are indeed very promising. Earlier, Poland purchased 100 K2 tanks. On October the 19th, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Defense Marshal Błaszczak approved a contract for the supply of South Korean K239 Chunmoo rocket launchers. Polish Yelch trucks will be incorporated into these missile launchers. The Chunmoo are very similar in terms of characteristics to the HIMARS. They are very good weapons, very good equipment, and I think our Polish-Korean joint success is that the first Chunmoo squadron will be delivered to Poland as early as next year. Without the democratization of Belarus, there will be no long-term stability in our region. The Polish ambassador to the United Nations, Krzysztof Szczerski, told the Security Council. He urged the authorities in Minsk to stop helping Russia in its aggression against Ukraine.
Mr. President, 2 weeks ago on October 4th, Alexander Lukashenko of Belarus finally openly admitted that Belarus is taking part in the Russian-waged war against Ukraine. But actually, since the very first days of the Russian invasion, Belarus has been used by Russia as a launching pad for its attacks against Ukraine, including Kiev. Russian invading troops have been given a free passage through the Belarusian territory, and hundreds of Russian missiles were launched from it. As a neighbor of Belarus, Poland is deeply concerned by the Belarusian complicity in the Russian aggression. Our message to the authorities in Minsk is clear. Think about all the negative effects of your engagement on the side of the aggressors. Withdraw all your support and help stop shedding of blood or your next door neighbors.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for a strong international response to Russia's suspension of participation in the grain export initiative. He said that the Kremlin's decision was predictable and that it ultimately demolishes the export initiative. He reported that the designated route cannot now be traversed by 218 ships.
The residents of Kiev were awakened this morning by more explosions. The Russians are continuing missile attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure, which have caused power and water outages. Metro train traffic has been halted. The metro train simply stopped running. Then I read the news that there had been 2 explosions at infrastructure sites in Kharkiv. How do I feel about this? Obviously, I'm outraged and angry. I don't want to say certain words, but yes, I feel hatred towards all who are responsible for this war. I don't know anymore how to feel about this. We're just fed up with the Russians. Russians have been continuously shelling the dam of a hydroelectric power plant in Nova Kakhovka. It is a village located in the partially Russian-occupied Kherson region. According to experts, blowing up the dam could cause flooding of areas near it. Today there were people alive there, and now they are gone. I saw 3 dead bodies over there when it all happened. I do not have a roof over our house. The ceilings have started crumbling away. No windows or doors left. Now we all live in one little room. The kitchen is shared. Everything is shared. This is the way we live because we have nowhere to go. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for a strong international response to Russia's suspension of participation in the so-called grain initiative. Hundreds of ships blocked in ports are waiting to sail. Others cannot enter Ukrainian ports. The soldiers of the border guard stopped the fierce offensive actions of the enemy in the Donetsk region. Furthermore, they managed to replenish our exchange fund for prisoners of war. Of course, the partners are trying to convince the terrorist state to slow down the blackmail a little. So far, the facts indicate that the Russian leadership is more interested in escalating the food crisis than in implementing the signed documents. And by the way, this is the answer to all those who talk about negotiations with Russia. The grain corridor is a very specific example. 218 ships are waiting for the opportunity to carry food under export contracts or enter Ukrainian ports, and has now blocked it completely. Ethiopia is on the brink of starvation. We are ready to release this ship into the sea, like all others that left the ports of Greater Odessa during the grain export initiative. But this bulker with wheat for the UN Food Program and other ships with agricultural products are forced to wait because Russia is blackmailing the world with hunger. Russia is the only one to blame for the fact that food will now become more expensive for people across a vast expanse from West Africa to East Asia. Agreements to unblock grain exports from Ukrainian ports through the Black Sea and Turkish Straits were signed July 22nd in Istanbul by representatives of Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, and the UN. The agreement was made for 120 days, or until November 19th, with the possibility of extension.
The death toll has risen to more than 140 after a construction disaster in India. A pedestrian bridge collapsed into the water, dragging down people standing on it. According to witnesses, just before the tragedy, a group of about a dozen young people tried to make the 230-metre suspension bridge swing. CCTV footage from just before the collapse showed a group of young men taking photos while others tried to rock the suspension bridge from side to side before they tumbled into the river below as cables holding it together gave way. Death was in front of us. When we were on the bridge, we saw people falling in the river and feared we might also fall. But by God's grace, we could hold the net and did not let our grip go loose and came out safely. We were 7 people and we came out safely. There were about 15 to 20 boys aged between 20 to 25 who were shaking the bridge. All had gathered on the bridge. We heard some sounds 3 times, and the 6th time the cable suddenly snapped. This broke part of the bridge. We clung to the net when it fell and managed to slowly crawl out. We were 3 friends. Him and I, and the 3rd one died. What was in your mind when the bridge collapsed? Were you scared to see the water in the river? I could hardly see the water. I could just see people falling off the bridge. Police in the western state of Gujarat, where the disaster occurred, told Reuters they had detained 9 people after registering a criminal case against unnamed people responsible for the renovation, maintenance and management of the bridge. Local officials told Reuters the manager of the bridge, a company making clocks and electrical items, had not informed the authorities that the bridge would be opened last week after repairs, adding that no certificate that it was fit for public use had been issued. The colonial-era footbridge over the Machachu River in the centre of Morbi town was packed with sightseers enjoying holiday festivities when it collapsed on Sunday evening, plunging people about 10 metres into the river. Some 400 people had bought tickets to get onto the bridge to celebrate Diwali and Chhat Puja festivals. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.